Welcome back to the show. Today we're diving into the two biggest titans of British rock, the Beatles and Pink Floyd. And I'll be honest with you right out of the gate, I'm a Beatles guy through and through. I do love the Beatles, and that they paved the way for the experimentation while keeping the lyrics strong and songs catchy. And then you have Pink Floyd, and to me, I feel like they're just kind of, standing there with lasers and a few balloons while the music kind of just floats. And before we get into the weeds of stuff, what is it about, Pink Floyd that makes you, gravitate towards them when they're, so laid back?
Yeah. With Pink Floyd, I really enjoy, like you said, the laid backness. You can really kind of dig into the music and hear different instruments throughout the tracks. The tracks are, 15 minutes long at points, and there's a lot to get into within those tracks, different instrumentation and guitar effects and whatnot.
Yeah, that's true. I think that does kind of, make it unique that they have a lot of different sounds and things for sure like that. It's like, I don't mean to like come off as a hater. I'm just like saying right out the gate, but I think it will make for good conversation with this. But the thing for me that really does it is like, obviously, like I've followed them closer. They're more in the pop culture zeitgeist for me, you could say.
Hmm.
And they kind of have more dynamic personalities than Pink Floyd, in my opinion. Just because in like Pink Floyd, you have like the Roger Waters camp and you have David Gilmour. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but do you have any thoughts on that?
No, I mean, you explained it exactly perfectly. The Beatles really, as individuals, they're so different from each other. You have like John Lennon, he's very politically active. Paul McCartney, the sort of like baby face almost one. George is the quiet one, and Ringo is Ringo.
Yeah,
But like you said
yeah.
with Pink Floyd, it is really just Roger Waters and David Gilmour, and then the other two.
Yeah, I was gonna say they don't kind of, stand out, whatever, because I was like, I don't even know who is who, because I'm, aware of maybe like another member or two of, Pink Floyd, but they're kind of the main guys. But yeah. Speaking of that though, because since we're, talking about the Beatles and personalities, is that could you rank the Beatles members from your least favorite to your favorite?
Yeah, for sure. Going from least favorite to most favorite, I think Ringo just has to be last. Unfortunately, like I really love his drumming with the Beatles, but solo career wise, he does a lot of country music, which personally I'm just not that big a fan of. But moving on, Paul McCartney is probably second to last. It's just I don't know, his music hasn't really stuck out to me. His work with the Beatles is really, really good, but as a solo artist, it's just not quite there for me. Going to the third spot, I'd have to put George Harrison. His guitar work, not only with the Beatles, but his solo career as well, is just fantastic. And then the top spot is probably gonna have to be John Lennon. I really, really enjoy his solo work. Imagine, especially, that album is amazing. So,
Well, thank you for sharing. I kind of knew that John Lennon was your top, but I didn't know how the rest of them ranked in your list. But
right, yeah.
yeah. For me, I guess to flip it back over, I think I'd have the pretty much the completely opposite. Like John would be at the bottom for me just because like I don't know, like I like some of his hits and obviously like Imagine, is a great song. Like maybe I'm being a little bit ignorant because I haven't like dove that deep into all this stuff, but it's just I don't know. It's just interesting that it's like he did write a lot of good songs, but then some of the time he kind of like comes off as a prick, but like I didn't
Yeah,
obviously know the guy either. So I was like, that kind of turns me off from him a little bit. But like, I don't know. And then it's like you have Yoko there too, who's just like kind of like screaming or whatever. I'm like, I don't know what that was, but
yeah, hard to say.
yeah, I mean, I do think she does get a bad rap for like breaking up the Beatles because when really in retrospect, Paul's like, well, it was kind of me because I was going to do my solo thing anyway. So,
Yeah.
I've never hated Yoko. I'm just like, I'm not really into it, but yeah. But, speaking of that, yes, I would have John at the bottom, then I kind of flip-flop for my 3rd place between, like, George and Ringo, just because, like, George, I've liked him a lot more in, like, recent years, like, in his guitar work, I totally agree. I mean, like, Something is a Beautiful Song, or, like, obviously, you gotta say, like, While My Guitar Gently Weeps, I mean, that's amazing. I mean, I know that
Yeah.
those are, like, his 2 kind of probably most well-known songs. I mean, I do like, my Sweet Lord or like other things of his solo work and stuff. But yeah, I don't know. It just those kind of flop back and forth. And then, I guess in second I put Ringo, but he's very underrated and he gets a lot of crap. And like he's not the best drummer by any means. I will agree with that. But, like, as Paul and others have said, for his type of playing did work for the Beatles because he's really just serving the song. Like, it's very
Yeah.
basic, but that was kind of his style because he was never like a, Keith Moon or John Bonham that's doing like a crazy solo. He's just kind of like, keeping the beat. And that's okay. It's what you need for your band, I feel like.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, he really sits in the music. He doesn't, like you say, he's not being overwhelming with his drum playing at all.
Yeah, and I think there is something, to speak about that with like, the person, like maybe he is a goofball, and I kind of like that he is kind of the comic relief of the group. Like, definitely not like the strongest, songwriter or singer by any means, but like it's like, I don't know, he's just like, I don't want to say like the mascot of the Beatles, but he kind of feels that way to me. Like, he's kind of like a sidekick to where he's like, I don't know, just kind of dragged along for the ride sometimes. I enjoy him a lot. I did see him in like his all-star band before like several years ago, so that was kind of cool.
Yeah, for sure. I would love to see any of the either Paul McCartney or Ringo live. I may not like their music all that much, but just to see a living Beatle in person, life changing, probably.
And that was kinda like my thought too, to where it's like, I don't know that much like Ringo, honestly, like, I will agree that he does not have that great of solo material. That's probably why he's always toured with the all-star band,
Yeah,
so then people can kinda pick up the slack and whatever, but, it's a
yeah,
kind of a cool setup, though, just because, like, I mean, there was, like, a guy from, like, Men at Work, and he was doing, like, Land Down Under, then there was, like, a guy from, like, Edgar Winter Group, and it's like, "What?" And then yeah, so it's kinda neat, so it's a
yeah,
different thing for sure, with that. Yeah, no, I agree, and I not trying to rub it in your face, I was just saying, like, it's definitely a bucket list thing when you're a fan of people like that. Because 'cause there's been, some things I've missed the boat on, I'm like, "Ah, crap," but, yeah.
yeah, yeah. I know. I think Paul McCartney around Thanksgiving time was in Chicago for some of his tour dates, and I really wanted to go, but I just couldn't warrant paying so much money for that.
That's fair. It's a hard thing right now just because, like, of, everything's getting so much more expensive, and it's like, it's hard with the concert thing because 'cause I've always been, like, of more the mindset of, like, if I wanna do it, screw it, I'm just gonna go, I will make my money back in the future, but I do
Right.
understand, though, it's hard to try to, budget and be like, it's not really a necessity to have to go to the show.
Yeah.
But, yeah, and thinking of that too, I was just, you are correct that because he finished his tour in Chicago right around Thanksgiving because I had messaged you, and I was like,
Yeah.
"Man, if you could go, do it," because I was listening to, his, like, Live in New York City album, and I was like, "Oh, man," because like, Let Me Roll It was playing, and I was like, "This is so good." I was like, "I gotta message him to," just I was just doing it kinda more as a bit, but I was like, "Do
Yeah.
whatever you want," but
I appreciate the text though. That was, it really made me look more in depth at the tour and what he was doing. The more I thought about it, the more unfeasible it became. Didn't quite line up.
No, that's fair. I mean, and to get over to Chicago, and it's like fall time, so it's like the weather could change on a dime like that. I try not
Yeah.
to do a lot of shows in the fall or winter because of that.
Yeah. I also had school to do, and that was just making things even harder. So
Yeah, no, I understand. You got, priorities obviously, so I totally totally
yeah,
understand. I'm just a guy out here just like, "Hey, you gotta go," But
yeah,
anyway, so I guess that leaves my top spot, and, yeah, I have Paul McCartney as my number 1. He's just I don't know, I just love his personality that he's just such a I don't know, he just seems just like a good person overall, like, just a fun
yeah.
time and just, like, well-rounded and well-spoken, and I don't know, I gravitate more towards his, like, songwriting, and, I've said this before kind of, but, I really love his, like, solo stuff and his things with Wings. I thought Wings was amazing
Mhm.
in my opinion. Band on the Run and, like, Venus and Mars are, like, 2 of my favorite albums of all time. I actually have them back there behind me, but,
Oh, okay,
we'll get
yeah,
into that today. Yeah, anyway, enough of that, I guess. Yeah, and then, speaking of albums, I actually only have, like, 2 Beatles albums. Well, actually 3, I should say. I do have Abbey Road,
yes. I love that
and I
one.
and I have, Revolver. I feel like people don't talk about Revolver enough, to be honest.
Yeah, I completely agree. Definitely their introduction into the psychedelic songwriting that they started to do more going into Sergeant Pepper and Magical Mystery Tour. A lot of those songs really just make the album.
I agree, and it's weird just because, like, I'm not that big into, like, the overall, like, '60s, like, psychedelic stuff. You can even rope in, like, Jimi Hendrix in there and stuff. I really don't, like, listen to really a lot of that stuff besides, like, the Beatles, like, psychedelic thing. I don't know what it is, it just, like, that, like, works for me. I don't it doesn't really make sense.
Yeah, yeah. I for psychedelic music, I really only stick to the Beatles and Pink Floyd. Pink Floyd really went a lot more hardcore into it during like Dark Side of the Moon era. But the Beatles like introduced me to that type of music, psychedelic rock that I really enjoy now.
Yeah, I think they're a good, like, gateway just because, like, they dabbled in, like, so much different stuff.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, you have the early days where it's like early rock and roll, and then you got middle where it's kind of its own thing, and then like you said, it's going to the psychedelic years, and then now it's classic rock at near the end of their careers.
Yeah, it is something. Well, even, like, you could say, like, they kinda sort of invented metal with, like, Helter Skelter, like, people say that
Yeah,
too. So it's
yeah,
like, it's interesting.
I completely agree with that. And there's some other heavy songs I don't know off the top of my head, but maybe like "I Want You," "She's So Heavy" off of Abbey Road. That one's a rather
Yep,
heavy one.
yep. Yeah, that's kind of a different one, but it's like it has, like, a good groove to it, like, "da da da," and then, like, "dun dun dun." Yeah, I like that one.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
The ending is really good because it just cuts off, and then you get the run out groove, and then "Here Comes the Sun" on the next side. It's just amazing.
It is. Like, probably I don't know, it's kinda stereotypical, but this was a question I was gonna ask later, but probably Abbey Road probably is my favorite, Beatles album, I'd say. It kinda seems like a lot of people's answer.
Yeah, I would have to say the same too. It's just hit after hit. It's like it doesn't dip below an 8 out of 10 at all for each song. Most of them are 9s or 10s. But the Abbey Road melody on side 2 really hits the spot. It is incredible, and the way it ends on I think the last track is called "The End." Yeah, just the last lyrics, incredible way to end their recording career.
I know it was perfect, it was like it was meant to be?
Yeah. So I guess I'm sure you know this, but they recorded the Let It Be album first, and then they did Abbey Road, but then they switched the release dates. So Abbey Road released first, and then Let It Be.
I did know that. I've always thought that's kind of an interesting, thing to where it's like they kinda had their definitive end and then, like, Let It Be comes out, so it's like,
Yeah.
okay, but yeah. Well, I know
Yeah.
they had, like, a lot of, obviously internal conflict and then, like, management, like, the record company and whatever, like, they lost a lot of money.
Yeah. And that's what happens when your former manager, because Brian Epstein used to be their manager before he died, and then they tried to pick up the slack after he died, and I just don't think they pulled it off real well.
No, I don't think they did. I think they just had so much else going on that, like, they just, like, could not really get it together.
Yeah, and I mean they're not business people, right? They're musicians. They're not meant
Yeah.
to do business, and I'm sure that widened the crack between each member of the Beatles.
Oh, yeah, I totally agree, and then, like, it was just kinda messy at the end, and then, like, Paul's like, "I'm leaving," and then I have this solo thing coming out, then, like, Ringo and the others are like, "Well, Let It Be is coming out." It's like, well, it's kinda too bad, but,
Yeah. I mean,
that's the way
at
I
least
take it at least.
yeah, at least Paul waited a little bit. He waited till after Let It Be came out to tell everyone that he was quitting the Beatles, which I think saved a lot of I think it made them a lot more money, and you know, if he did come out saying he was leaving the Beatles before Let It Be, would people buy the album still? I
Yeah,
think it's
I
hard to say.
it is hard to say, and I think that, yeah, he was I don't know, kinda seemed like he was trying to save face a little bit, and it kinda did time out correctly that way to me.
Yeah, for sure.
It's the other thing I was gonna say, the other, like, record that I do have is I do have their, like, 1 album that's pretty good too,
Yes. Yeah, I love that one.
kinda like their greatest hits. I guess what I meant to do was to flip it over to you, I don't know if you have them obviously in your dorm or not, but, do you own any of their records on vinyl or no? I was just curious.
I I own quite a bit. I tried to put them in the background, but I guess you can only see Sergeant Pepper.
I can see Sergeant Pepper and I can see Revolver. That's kind of like what I can see. My little like
Yeah.
corners like blocking the rest of it. You don't have to like pick them
All right.
all up and show me, but yeah, I
Yeah.
like that though. And obviously, I
There's
saw your Pink Floyd, poster up there too.
Yeah, I got a few on the windowsill here I can pull up. My goal really is to get all of their records. And I think I'm missing maybe two or three as of today, which is
Okay.
exciting. I'm almost done. But yeah, the few I have out now is of course Sergeant Pepper and Revolver, and then I have Help from 1965.
Oh, I like that one. I like that
Yeah,
movie too better than Hard Day's Night, in my opinion.
yeah. I don't think I've watched it. I watched A Hard Day's Night, and it's a very 60s.
It is. It was different because it was kind of like the first like mockumentary, and it very is like the British humor kind of thing, so it doesn't as correlate for us. I feel like, but
Yeah, I agree. And speaking of films, their other film, Magical Mystery Tour. This one is one of my favorite albums by them. A really psychedelic. I mean, that's during their period in 1967. Yeah, so this was a TV special that the album released for.
hmm
Very interesting TV special. When I was finished watching it, my only reaction was like a question mark. I wasn't sure what had just watched.
that's fair. Well, I just with Magical Mystery Tour, like I always think of like the I Am the Walrus. That's just such a strange song, and the video from that is strange too
Yeah,
because I know it's kind of
truly.
taken from that movie, but
Yeah, it's very odd indeed. A really good song. I enjoy it a lot. I have it as a 45 as well.
oh,
I have
that's
quite a
cool.
few Beatles singles. As for albums, I also have Rubber Soul from 1965.
Okay, I like a few of the tracks on there. It seems like a lot of people really love that album. For me, it's just kind of okay, but
Yeah,
I don't know what
yeah.
you think. But
I think it's one of their better ones. It's definitely not like their worst, but if we compare it to like Sergeant Pepper and Abbey Road, it's doesn't really do better than them. Still good nonetheless.
yeah,
And then of course I have Abbey Road out.
okay, yep.
Yeah, of course, like I said before, my favorite Beatles album, just incredible all around. And then the last one is the White Album from 1968.
Ooh, yeah, okay.
Yeah, so it's got four sides. You have some of their best music on it and then some of their worst. It's really
That's
all over
very
the place.
Yeah, that really kind of hits the nail on the head just because I've gotten more into the White Album as time has went along, but for like every SSR or like Dear Prudence or something, then you have like Rocky Raccoon. I'm like, what
Yeah.
is this? And it's just junk. Like I was like, because my speaking of Rocky Raccoon, like my parents have like Sirius XM, so like I'll flip on the Beatles channel and then like Rocky Raccoon or something comes on. I'm like, why? I was like, this song sucks. It's not
Yeah.
good. It's not.
I mean, Revolution 9 is on side 4. It's the second to last track.
God. Yeah, I was just gonna mention that.
Unlistenable.
Yeah, I
It's
know. I
really
was just
bad.
like, I don't know why they like did it. If they were just like, I don't care, whatever. That was probably the thought. Like, I know they were always like experimenting, but it's just like, what was the point of this? Just to be like number nine, number nine. Like,
Yeah.
I could do that. Like, there's no talent there. You just hit record and you're saying number nine into a microphone. Like,
Yeah. They were
oh
definitely
boy.
going for the avant-garde sound, and I think they accomplished it, but I did it belong on an album? Not at all.
Yeah, that could have been more like a thing for like, I don't know, like a random either EP or like, some sort of standalone single in my opinion if they
Yeah.
were going to do that, but it's taking up like precious space. I mean, I know that's kind of a longer album as it is, but I'm just like, so
Yeah, you
kind of
could
a
really
mixed
fill it up with something else.
exactly. It was like very mixed bag because I was like there is a great album in there, but then there's just a lot of like extra like stuff, and I'm like I
Yeah,
don't know what they were doing there, but yeah.
for sure.
Yeah. Speaking of that, since we're kind of on albums, so I know Abbey Road's like your favorite, my favorite. I should say like what is your top 3 like favorite Beatles albums? So I know Abbey Road, then where do the,
Okay. Yeah. That's a good question.
cuz I know you like Magical Mystery Tour and like it's hard to pick, and
Yeah. I'm trying to think of albums that I have no skips on, because
okay.
Sergeant Pepper I do have a skip on,
Mm,
which kind of brings it down, but like the highs are really high on Sergeant Pepper, but the lows are
yeah.
kind of low.
That's fair.
But probably be Abbey Road, Revolver, Magical Mystery Tour, probably.
That's a solid lineup. I don't feel like Magical Mystery Tour gets enough love because a lot of people seem like they're like, oh, they were kind of falling apart and whatever. I'm like, I don't know, it's
Yeah.
weird, but there's some bangers on there. I mean, like title track's good. I Am the Walrus is, weird, but it's still good. And even like Fool on the Hill, I like. Like it's kind of a weird thing, but I don't know. I like that one, but I'm kind of
Yeah.
blanking on the rest of that track list at this time.
Yeah. The little story behind Magical Mystery Tour, I guess. It was released as a double EP in the United Kingdom. So that's uh, I don't know, six or so tracks on two 245s. But in the US, they decided to just make it one LP. So they put the EP tracks on side one, and then they put, I think, all the singles from 1967 on side two. So that includes like Hello Goodbye, Strawberry Fields Forever, Penny Lane, Baby You're a Rich Man, and All You Need Is Love.
That's a lot of
So
bangers.
yeah, a lot of their big hits on side two.
Huh. I honestly did not know that. It's kind of
Yeah,
neat.
so they for like the official Beatles timeline of their albums, they take all the UK ones and then slide in the Magical Mystery Tour LP in there. This is the only exception they make for the timeline, at least.
Hmm. I didn't know that. If you have kind of, a better, Beatles collection than I do at this point. But it kind of makes it a little bit tough because like you have UK releases, then you have like the US stuff, and then there's like at some like record stores or like sales and things where it's like you'll see like a Beatles album, but then it's like 40 or $60. And it's like, is this just, marked up just because it's a Beatles album? Probably. But like even
For
when it's
sure.
not like even like because like a lot of newer pressings like aren't really the best in my opinion. A lot of them sound like crap that like you get from like Walmart, or I've been like, oh, I'll just order something off Amazon, and like, some things have been okay, and then some I'm like, not the best. But
Right. And they've been slowly remixing most of the albums. They started with Sgt. Pepper for its 50th anniversary, and then they did the White Album and Abbey Road, and I think Let It Be came out a few years ago. So those albums have remixes, which of course make them sound better than the originals.
oh yeah, for sure. I just mean like maybe I take back what I said is that sometimes I guess just for like people like putting out albums now, they like some people really just like phone it in and it's not the greatest quality of like the vinyl itself. Like I can't think of like this like what the standard like specifications are, but some things are just like better like higher gram vinyl or whatever it is.
Hmm.
I'm probably kind of blanking on this now, but and
Yeah,
speaking of that, yeah,
the fidelity almost, the space between the grooves definitely makes a lot of the difference.
I think so. And some stuff it's just like I don't know, just with some newer pressings, just sounds like so like slow to me, and I'm like, what is going on with this? But
Hmm.
yeah, I'd say too. Actually, looking back at my Abbey Road album, I see that it is like an anniversary edition, and it does sound really good. I guess maybe I should quit complaining about prices on stuff, you know. Oh, but and then yeah, for the Sergeant Pepper thing, I remember when they did that for like the 70th, not 70th, 50th anniversary in 2017 because I have like I have the CD of that. It was kind of cool. Like I have it somewhere, but I
Yeah.
wish I had the vinyl. That would be cool.
Yeah, it comes with some cool extras as well. You get a little piece of cardstock almost that tells you who each of the cover like celebrities are. So yeah, I think
Oh,
like Karl Marx is
yeah.
on there. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's like him like Karl Marx and like Marilyn Monroe, and then it's like Muhammad Ali, and it's just kind of random, and then they have their younger selves.
Yeah.
But
And then as well as that, you get a little letter for like a snippet from I think it's either George Martin or Paul McCartney, one of the two, that talks about the making of the album. And it's a really cool read. So I'm not sure if the CD came with either of those.
I will have to look at that sometime. I don't remember. It's been years. Like a lot of my CDs, like I mean, like my vinyl kind of sits, and I don't always, listen to it enough. I feel like, but CDs, I've thought about kind of just selling, what I got, just because like they are nice to have. But I was like, 9 times out of 10, I just like, use my Bluetooth and Spotify in my car, and I'm like, especially if you have a longer road trip, like and you're just by yourself, like you're not gonna really be like changing out the CD, or, like pulling
Yeah.
over every like 20 minutes, but.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Vinyl really, because most of the time, right, I listen to Spotify because I'm on the go and I can't, you can't really listen to records on the go. But if I'm
Yeah, it'd be a
sitting
little tough.
down, yeah, if I'm sitting down and doing something, maybe it's a good time to put a record on. Sit 20
Yeah.
minutes, flip it another 20 minutes. Yeah.
It's nice, like, that's what I love too is, like, when you have the time to take to listen to it and to do something, because like, yeah, you could, like, just sit and not do anything, but I guess for me, I like, kind of, either, like, cleaning or, like, putting away laundry or something, that's what I kinda do, but kinda
hmm
almost feels like vinyl to me, like, this may sound bad, it's almost like reading a book to where it's like, you're actually, like, going and doing and experiencing something, you're not just, like, on a device of some sort, you're being taken away to another place, but you're partially kinda doing it yourself because it's, like, how you feel about it, like, whether it be the book or the music, if that makes sense?
But yeah, 100%. That does make sense. Yeah, it's really like you said, it's an experience that you're actively doing. Yeah.
Yeah, there is just something to it, and I think too, it's like there's something about being able, like, to hold the record in your hands like this and the artwork, and it's like, they can do things sometimes, like, to display it digitally a little bit different, but it's not really the same as like you're just scrolling through titles on Spotify. It is hard,
Yeah.
like to collect so many albums because it's like over time, it's like it's a lot of money, but like
It really adds up. Yeah. And another thing with the album covers, like Spotify, you get the front cover and it's great to look at, but you don't get the back or the gatefold.
I know. They should make, like, maybe they will hear this and ever, like, do a change of that. It would be cool if they ever, like, had an option to where, like, you could just, like, scroll through, like on that square, if you could, like, click on it and then you could open, like, the gatefold and then you could flip it to the back. Like, if it was a little bit more interactive, and maybe they will get there someday. I mean, they just added music videos, so maybe they'll get their
Yeah.
album thing, but yeah.
I guess the real problem is there really a demand for that? And I really don't know if there is because if people want to see the album cover in person, they'll just buy it on vinyl or buy it on CD.
Yeah, that's true. I think it would be a very niche thing for them to have to do that. It's kinda
Yeah,
extra, but just a thought off the top of my
yeah,
head.
it'd be
But
really cool though.
it would be, and I mean, that's what other people have, said before too. It's like, and that's my thought. I was like, "There's something I really love, I will go and buy it." Like, obviously, like, there are more of the Beatles albums that I want to collect. Like, I'm not gonna get everything, but, like, Sergeant Pepper for sure, then, like, probably Magical Mystery Tour and, like, a few other things, but, like, I don't know, but then
Yeah.
there's stuff, like, to where, like, that I don't really care for all that much, like, like, with the Beatles is probably, like, my least favorite, so I was like, "I don't know that I'll get that one." I guess, like, I know I asked you the question earlier, but so for my top 3, Beatles albums, bringing this back to that, is that, like, I
Mhm.
would say Abbey Road is my number 1, then number 2 is Sergeant Pepper, then number 3, I would say, is Revolver for me.
Oh,
So,
okay. Yeah. Yeah. All
I
great.
because I know, like, Revolver, they were working towards kind of that more, experimental stuff, and then, like, obviously, eventually, like, you have, like, Sergeant Pepper, as we already talked about, and that has, yeah, a lot of great tracks. There are a couple of misses there for me, but, like, I don't know, I overall really like Sergeant Pepper, and the other thing too that's interesting for Sergeant Pepper, like, I don't know if you've ever, like, deep dived, like, the videos about that. Around that time, I think, like, Paul got pissed and he, like, went off and whatever and left the studio, and then there was something to where, like, around that time, like, the Paul is dead, like, rumors kinda started. Have you, like,
Yeah.
went down that rabbit hole? Because it is, like, something.
I have. Yeah. When I was first getting into the Beatles in around 2020, I did go down that rabbit hole. And I can't say I was a believer, but it was definitely something to think about. And some of the evidence towards it is just not quite there, but it's cool nonetheless. I'm interested to hear what you think about it.
Yeah, I mean, I've never bought into it either, to be honest, but, like, there were, like, there's been, like, times, like, here or there to where it's like, maybe, but I was like, how, like, much of a cover up there would have to be, and then they're like, "Oh, they had the lookalike contest and whatever," then, like, people be like, "Look, his nose is different," or whatever, and they're like, "He messed up his tooth," and then it's like, "Yeah, he broke his tooth in a scooter accident," and then
Yeah.
they're like, "Obviously, he has a little bit different of a face structure now," because of that, and then, I don't know, it'd just be, like, insane, or, like, even, like, look at, like, nowadays to where, like, him having to, like, recall, like, songs from, that time or before, like, him growing up. I was just like, somebody would have had to have, like, given him, like, books and books of stuff to, like, memorize, or him talk about, like, his, mom passing away, or, like, his, house and stuff, and I'm like, there's so many layers to this. I was just like, "Oh my gosh," like, the
Yeah.
guy just grew a mustache, like, that's you know?
Yeah, I mean, all the Beatles grew a mustache for, Sergeant Pepper, so at that point, you could argue all of them died
Yeah,
and got
yeah,
replaced.
that's true. Yeah, that's true. Be like, "What did you do to them?" Yeah, it's something for sure. Well, that then also too, it's like, well, he has his back to us, he's dead. And then like there's, Paul's kind of bass and like flowers on the bottom of Sergeant Pepper. There's like something else that I think it like spells out like R.I.P. They thought. There was like a couple
Yeah.
other things. I'm just like, I feel like some of that too, they just did that to mess with us, because maybe if they got wind of those things happening and then they just played it up because they're like, oh, people will buy the stuff and whatever, the albums because of the controversy, and like be like, well, that's something.
You know, I don't think the Beatles would have done that themselves. I definitely think, Capitol Records in the US, who were releasing their albums up until Sergeant Pepper, they definitely would have done something like that, but I don't think the Beatles themselves would have pushed towards that conspiracy.
I think that's a good way of putting it, because like, again, as we talked before, like the Beatles, let's be honest, are not like the most business minded guys. But
Mhm.
I think Capital probably would have done that, because it is a good like marketing thing. I mean, it's very interesting to be like, maybe we replaced him, maybe we didn't, it's like,
Yeah, buy
but
the album to find out.
yeah, exactly. And even like some of the lyrics and whatever, like a day in the life, like there's different things in that. And then it's just like, oh, you got killed in a car crash. And it's, it's like, oh my gosh, people will look like anywhere for stuff, like to find like the signs. It's just like there's some of that stuff. It's like you can convince yourself of like, anything kind of like, in your mind can go there. So I was like, I feel like that's what they're doing with that. And I was just like, people, but yeah.
Yeah, they really look towards anything, but yeah.
I think so. What else was I gonna say? Kind of at a transition point here, like, I love how, clean and catchy like the Beatles records are, but like when we look at Pink Floyd, the sound totally changes, and it's less about hooks and more about like the trippy identity. And I like when the Beatles tap into the psychedelic sound, but like when, Pink Floyd does it, it feels more like a collect. Do you think they went too far into that territory, or is that what makes them great? We're kind of, branching into Pink Floyd
To
now.
Pink Floyd, yeah. Yeah, I don't really listen to their earlier stuff. I'm more of into like the big four from Dark Side to the Wall. And Dark Side really went into that psychedelic identity. And I think they went maybe a little too far, but in the spirit of the album, it might be perfect, honestly. But after Dark Side, I think each noise, like especially in Wish You Were Here, Shine On You Crazy Diamond is I think like 12 parts long or something. There's maybe 5 minutes of lyrics in the entire song. And most of it's noise, and I think that noise really helps add on to the experience. And when you hear about the story of that album, it I don't know, it really sticks with me.
Yeah, I mean, it is something to be said with that. Like I said, don't want to be a hater. Like I said, I did from the start be like, I'm not a Pink Floyd guy, but
Right. Yeah. I mean,
I'd be on. But
yeah,
there's plenty of stuff like I like that other people don't like. And part of the thing with this podcast is, talking about different types of music and things like that, to where it's like, I like, you know, I don't know, some, metal stuff. I like country things. I like Kiss. And there's a lot of people, that don't like that. Like you said, like you're not a, country guy, and that's okay. It's not
for
to be like,
sure.
like I'm blocking you or something. Be like, you don't like this thing? Too bad. But like, but
Yeah. I mean, my music taste is very kind of locked. It takes a lot for me to listen to new things. And so, yeah, I mean, I haven't really experienced Kiss. I think the most metal I've gone into is like Metallica and their surface level hits, and that's about it.
which that's fair. Like, I mean, when I speak about metal, I guess like Metallica is one of my favorite bands for sure. And I don't go a lot further than them, because like you get into a certain point from metal and it's just like screaming, and it's just like it just runs together, and it's like if mud was like music or something. That's what it sounds like to me, because it's just like and I'm like, and then like there's other people, like I won't name names, like to where it's like they'll be like, you can really hear the, expression and emotion, and it's like, and it's like, what is this? And I'm like, yeah, I'd rather not. Like, and Metallica like gets a little bit like, kind of in your face intense, but they're never just like screaming about stuff, as much. Like, their first album is a little bit more that way, but they got better as they went along. But yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And I think you can take that extreme sorta to Pink Floyd, where it's you have songs that have just nothing in them, versus you have songs where it's everything, like "Comfortably Numb." That's that's kind of the quintessential Pink Floyd song, I think. Has
I
everything almost.
I'd probably agree with that. I have that here kind of in my notes to, touch on a couple of those songs here, like, coming up. I guess, like, the thing, like, with, Pink Floyd is that, like, I do like ballads and I do like acoustic things, like, overall, but, like, I don't know, their mix just, like, doesn't do it for me. Like, it's weird just because, like, you know, I like some chill and laid back stuff. Like, there's a country musician like Casey Musgraves, and she is like kind of country and pop, but then like some of her albums like very are much their own thing and are atmospheric. But I don't know, the Pink Floyd just does like like I don't know, their mix of it just doesn't work for me, I guess. But
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that makes sense for sure. I can't quite pinpoint what I like about them. Might just be the atmosphere of their music that I really enjoy. Coming from the Beatles, right? They have very surface level psychedelic music. Floyd really turns hard right into it.
oh, they definitely do. Oh yeah, speaking of psychedelic, I was thinking of like what was it? Wasn't it like Sid Barrett that was like their original like bass player?
Yeah, he
Or
was the one of their guitarists, their lead guitarist, I
okay,
think. Yeah, and
okay.
then he got really into LSD, and his mind kind of went elsewhere, and so they
I
had
was
to
just
like
Yep.
slowly push him out.
Yeah, I was just gonna because I made a note to talk about that because I was like, I don't know a lot about Pink Floyd, but I did hear about that on the podcast before that because I don't know if it was exactly right, but that he like basically did like acid for like a year and he kind of lost his mind
Yeah,
essentially.
yeah,
But
yeah. Yeah, that's yeah, exactly what happened. It was around 1968. They brought in David Gilmour. The last record Sid Barrett was on was A Saucer Full of Secrets, 1968. And I think they only gave him one song, and it's the last track. It's a pretty good song, but after that, yeah, it was just Gilmore Waters, right? And I don't remember the last one, but it's just those main four after that.
that's kind of what I thought. Yeah, I thought that was kind of a interesting way to like branch into that because I was like, oh, speaking of psychedelic, let's talk about the guy that just kind of lost it all, unfortunately.
Yeah, Wish You Were Here is about Sid Barrett. The album is kind of wishing he was more present, didn't do a bunch of drugs. And a little interesting story about that. When Pink Floyd was recording Shine On You Crazy Diamond, Sid Barrett walked into the studio. He was a few pounds heavier, he was bald, and they weren't sure, the band wasn't sure who he was until he left. And they were like, "Oh shoot, that was Sid." I think Roger Waters couldn't stop crying because of that. It's very emotional seeing your old friend kind of go downhill like that, especially when you're making music about
Yeah, I never knew that. I really didn't know that. Huh.
them.
That's gotta be hard though, like to see your friend in such a state like that and you made some, good music with him and now he's like not really himself anymore.
Yeah, I can't truly imagine going through that. And I hope for everyone's sake that no one has to go through that.
Yeah, it's a bad situation. I guess speaking of, David Gilmour, like I said, we kind of touched upon this earlier a little bit. Like you kind of have like the main like two camps in Pink Floyd. You have like David Gilmour and you have Roger Waters. Personally, like I'm more of a David Gilmour guy. Like where do you, land with that? Are you more of a Gilmour fan or are you more into like the Roger Waters conceptual stuff in Pink Floyd? Like do you have a favorite of those two? Like I thought you kind of lean more like David Gilmour.
Yeah, no worries. Yeah, I mean, I really enjoy Roger Waters has a way with lyrics that Gilmore doesn't. And that really shows within Dark Side of the Moon because I think Waters wrote that entire album, but you wouldn't have Pink Floyd without David Gilmour's guitar work. So I enjoy both of them for what they put into the band.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think it's kind of like the yin and yang thing towards like one has like the songwriting and the ideas, then one has like the, instrumentation and guitar playing, and it kind of complete the circle with that, I feel like.
Oh, yeah, for sure. 100%. And you kind of had that with the Beatles too, with Lennon and McCartney. Not to say George and Ringo weren't important, but those two were definitely um, leading the way.
Oh, for sure. Well, I mean, like, they're, probably the greatest songwriting duo of all time, Lennon and McCartney. Like, people still say it today, and it's, true.
Yeah, I 100% agree. Yeah.
Even with Gilmour's legendary guitar solos, Floyd still feels very atmospheric heavy, and like I lean more towards like Kiss and Metallica, like I said, and like kind of more like kind of in your face, dynamic, kind of run around the stage kind of thing. And
Mhm.
uh, how does a band that like basically like I'm talking about Pink Floyd here? How does a band that kind of just stands at the microphones, how does their energy like compete with like bands like I said like Kiss and Metallica and like Foo Fighters that are like I guess maybe is it just like different channels you're tuning into? Is that how it kind of correlates or what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think they're two different experiences. If you want loud rock and roll, don't go to a Pink Floyd concert. If you don't if you don't want atmospheric music that you can just sit and listen to, go to a Metallica concert or what have you.
Like how does a band like Pink Floyd that kind of just stands at like the microphones more so like yes, they have, light shows and lasers and like, a pig blimp like going around or whatever, and it's just what you want to go for.
Yeah, I truly think that. Yeah. Pink Floyd definitely you go to the concert for the experience of the music. That's true for like the Foo Fighters, for example, but they're two different experiences, right? You're going for the music for both, but you're very energetic. You're ready to dance or what have you for the Foo Fighters. But with Pink Floyd, you kind of sit there and experience it slowly. It's not all at once.
But yeah, no, I think that's a good way of putting it. It's just like, just kind of the experience you want to go for. And Pink Floyd for sure is kind of more music first, I would say. And some bands like not like Kiss has bad music, but they're more about like the live show and some other bands of like 70s and 80s to where they have kind of more of like the, frontman thing. Like even like I'm not like the biggest Queen person, but look at like, people like that with like Freddie Mercury and it's just like, how you guys doing and kind of stuff towards like Pink Floyd's not doing that. But
No, Pink, yeah, definitely. Queen really had or at least Freddie Mercury had a way of controlling the audience, and you could see it in the Live Aid performance from
yes, yeah.
1985.
Yeah, they're just in the
It's
palm of his hand.
it's incredible. And Pink Floyd never had that. I know Pink Floyd had a reunion in I think 2002 or so.
Yeah.
It's hard to compare that, but people were really excited that Pink Floyd got back together for that one concert. Yeah, they did a one benefit concert for
Okay.
something in Africa. I don't recall off the top of my head, but people were really excited because it had the four main members, if you care, Waters and Gilmour were there. It's a fantastic set list, but that was about the end of it. They didn't do anything after that 'cause then Richard Wright died 4 or so years later in 2006, and um, yeah, they couldn't really do a reunion after that.
Yeah, which is fair. It's hard to know, like, even, like, if he, wouldn't have passed away if they really woulda did a whole lot more just because, like, I know, Rogers and Gilmore don't really get along the best from what I've heard.
Yeah, they are not. Uh, Safe to say they're not friendly to each other. I don't think. But it was nice to see them at least play one more time before they couldn't anymore.
Yeah, I think it was, kind of a last good, hurrah kind of thing. Yeah, I didn't realize, like, that they played at that, but I do remember there was some sort of, like, benefit concert. I don't remember if it was, like, maybe, like, 2005 or something. There was some sort of, like, Live Aid type thing, like you were saying, and it might have been, like, anniversary of that to do, like, a benefit thing for, Africa again, but I don't
Yeah, that may have
remember.
been it. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't remember exactly what that was, but, I guess backtracking to, like, some of, like, the favorites for Pink Floyd is that, I do have The Wall on vinyl. This is actually my dad's album, but I just threw it in my stuff. But, it's, it's, very kind of, basic, and it's like, it's like Dark Side and, like, The Wall. Like, obviously, yes, they have other albums, but it's like those are kinda like the kinda main drag kinda things. I would say that, like, Another Brick in the Wall Part 2 is, like, my favorite. Like, I know it's probably, like, their one of their biggest hits, like, ever, but, like, I don't know, it just has such a great groove. And then,
Yeah,
like, another song I really like as well is Money. I think that bass line is great. Like, I think it's just
yeah,
really good. And then you were talking about, Wish You Were Here, and, I think it was, really great to be able to get, some of that story, from you about, them writing about Syd Barrett. I honestly had no idea. I've always thought that album cover is great with, like, the man on fire and then, like, the handshake. I've always thought that's really cool.
yeah. It really sticks out in pop culture. That Dark Side of the Moon and the Wall kind of really stuck in the pop culture from the 70s to now. It's a really great album cover.
It is. I totally agree, and, say, speaking of Wish You Were Here, I do like it's not my favorite song of theirs, but what I do like is I really do love that acoustic guitar sound, and with the effects they did on it, it's almost like there's, like, a filter over it because it's like and then it's like there's, like, almost something, like, cover it's unique.
It really is. I know at the beginning of the song, they kinda made it sound like a radio. They were tuning into the radio station. I think they kept that. They maybe buried it a little further in the mix when the actual song started, but they brought it back at the end. It really adds to the atmosphere of the track.
Yeah, I think so, it just adds, like, something more there than just, like, another, like, acoustic guitar layered on? It's kind of
Yeah,
like its own thing, really, to
for
me.
sure. Yeah, yeah. I learned that song on guitar kinda recently, so it's a very fun one for me to play.
Oh, that's cool, especially with being, a fan, it's fun to be able to do that.
Yeah, I really enjoy learning their songs.
Yeah, well, cool. And then I guess, like, my other song for, like, just to say that, like I said, I do like some of their stuff, not a complete hater, but I do think the guitar solo in Comfortably Numb is great. Like, the rest of the song is kind of all right to my ears, but I know we're, like, building towards that. Does it hit harder for you, like, the song overall, or
It's like you said, the solo is better than the lyrics almost. At least, that's how I feel. It does build up, like you said, but that last guitar solo is incredible. And in my head, I almost imagine like a thunderstorm during that last solo. The
Oh, yeah.
crashes on the cymbals or the lightning striking down, and you can almost feel the emotion through the guitar work from David Gilmour. It's truly incredible.
Yeah, it's almost like, I don't know, this sounds weird, but, like, almost like the guitar is like someone, like, crying or something, like, it's like, yeah, like.
Yeah, not weird at all.
Yeah.
Yeah, the way he plays emotions through his guitars is unmatched almost. I mean, Prince could probably do it, but other than
Yeah, he
those
was a
2,
really good guitar player.
yeah, yeah, Purple Rain, great album, just throwing that in there too.
I'm not a huge, like, Prince guy, but I will acknowledge, like, obviously, he did have some, great songs and stuff and his guitar work, and I thought, like, looking back, like, it's kind of a little bit of a random thing, but his Super Bowl performance was great in the actual rain, I think in, like, Miami or something, and, yeah, that was a really cool performance, and I guess too, like, before I let you, like, actually say anything to that, is that, like, I was in Minnesota last year, and it was really cool that I was, like, on the same street at First Avenue where I stayed, and there was, like, a mural of Prince right across from my hotel, so I was like, that was cool to be in his home city, his home
Yeah,
state, so that was neat.
yeah, the Super Bowl performance is really, really good. That last like you said, the Purple Rain with the actual rain coming down is really good. I was in Minneapolis, however you say it, over winter break for a few hours, and they have a Prince store in the airport. So I stopped by. It's a small little store, nothing too interesting. It's literally a Prince store, but nonetheless, having it in the airport is cool.
I think it's kind of a nice touch, and I like that when, places, pay respect to an artist from their area like that, so I thought that's kinda cool, be like, "Hey, like
Yeah,
what you do."
continuing the legacy.
Yeah, I think so. Well, even like this is another random example, but even like Pine Knob just outside of Detroit. Like I'm not a Bob Seger guy, but it's literally like on Bob Seger Drive. So it's like, oh, that's a cool, like nod to like their hometown guy. So I was like, oh, it's kind of cool when places do stuff like that.
Yeah, I love it.
Um, kind of trying to get back on track here.
Yeah,
The other thing I was going to say is like, speaking of like, Pink Floyd being like kind of, cinematic. I see a lot of time, on different, like, Instagram posts, like, I see, "In the Air" and then, like, "Great Gig in the Sky," like, those are used in so many Instagram posts, and it's like, Does that make them a great band or just like a cool sound because people do that with those songs?
I don't think I've ever personally seen that on Instagram. I don't really use Instagram all that often, so that is probably why. But I think that's really people just using it because it's a popular sound effect for that
I think
for
so
certain
because
type of posts.
some stuff just gets trending like out of nowhere. And it's like, I've been listening to like not those that I've been listening to for years, but like certain things are just like, yeah, that's been like a hit for years. It's been in my playlist, then people are
Yeah.
just like bandwagon to it.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Um, and so, looking at that, it's exactly like you said, I've been listening to this for years and people are just now discovering it. Um,
Yeah, and it very much
yeah.
is that kind of thing. I honestly did not know until I was kind of doing research for this episode that those were like Pink Floyd songs, especially for Instagram when you can, have like obviously multiple, photos in one post and it's like kind of those
Yeah.
things and it's just like or like things getting progressively like horrible like with their post or something happened to somebody and then it's just like great gig in the sky. Yeah, and it's like okay.
No, that's a great song for that. It really brings an emotion of what's the word? Can't think of the word, but it really brings a certain type of emotion when you're listening to that.
I think so. And speaking of cinematic, like again, I keep saying like a lot of their tracks do kind of feel that way for Pink Floyd. Are you aware of like out of the Dark Side of the Rainbow thing, like syncing up like Dark Side of the Moon and Wizard of Oz?
Yeah, I have heard of that. I think that's another thing where it's like the Paul is dead theory, where I think people were just doing it for fun. It maybe is there, it probably isn't, but it's a cool thing to experiment with once in a while. But I don't think it was intentional whatsoever.
I kind of agree with that. Like I think it was just one of those like coincidences and I don't have, Dark Side of the Moon on vinyl, but I know I could do that obviously just pulling it up on Spotify. Have you ever thought about doing that yourself? About like doing the two together?
Yeah, I've seen people line it up on YouTube and I've tried to sit through the entire thing, but there's just certain moments that stick out for that. It's not the entire thing, if it lined up for the entire album, then maybe there's something there, but it'd be moments in certain songs that it line up, and I just don't think there's enough there. Like I said, I haven't personally tried it. I don't think I ever will.
Uh,
Yeah, curious if you would ever try it.
I've thought about it to see like maybe if I would like it a little bit better because like I have not listened to all of Dark Side of the Moon. I will, be straight up about that. And The Wizard of Oz, I probably haven't seen for like 12 years. And I watched it on TV because it's always like on TV around like, November and Thanksgiving for whatever reason. Probably just because it's like a good kind of family movie. It's a classic kind of thing. Like there are some odd things in it, yes, but it's just like kind of a staple of that time
Which,
for
yeah,
whatever reason.
yeah, it
But
truly
I
is.
I thought it was a good, movie and stuff overall. I'm not like I always say like, I'm not huge into musicals because I like gravitate more towards like kind of, horror and like comedy movies. But like, I don't know, but if the music is right though, like I'm not like as much song and dance, but like something like Rock of Ages or whatever, like that's a musical, but it's like that I like. So I'm like, maybe I shouldn't say that I don't like musicals because I definitely do.
Yeah.
But I don't know. The Wizard of Oz, like I said, is like one of those things to where it's like it's classic for sure, and I did like it when I watched it. It's on HBO Max, so I have that on my list to rewatch, and then to see like if I
Okay.
actually would like those Wicked movies or not. Just they're probably more of just a one time watch thing, but like I was like, I don't know. The Wizard of Oz I did enjoy a lot, and because it's interesting with older movies like that because some still hold up and some really don't just because like for example like how I said that I like horror movies like I watched Psycho like a couple of years ago I really did not like it but then there's other older stuff like Rear Window that I liked from, Alfred Hitchcock or like Anatomy of a Murder. Like I thought that was great.
Yeah.
But it's just so hit or miss for me just because some of the ways like how we, talk and interact and do things like are so different now than what they were then. And even like also too, it's like some of the like people even on screen, like, Jimmy Stewart and stuff, they seem like they're like a radio announcer kind of type thing. It's just like not a normal voice. It's like, what are you doing? And people did that for like years before they really started speaking normally in like roles and things like that.
Yeah, definitely develops with the culture of the time for sure.
Yeah, I totally agree. What was I going to say. So yeah, I've thought about doing that as a bucket list thing one day, possibly to be like, well, maybe this way I actually get through a whole album because I don't know that I really would otherwise. I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe that will change. I mean, things come and go. Like, I mean, I didn't like Metallica for years, and then I came around and I saw the light. So maybe I'll send you a text if I see the light with Pink Floyd and be like, I get it, I get it, I get it. Yeah.
Yeah. I will say my first time listening to Dark Side, the entire thing, start to finish, was the Wizard of Oz playthrough. Wasn't really
Okay.
paying attention to the clues. I was more just watching the movie with the sounds,
Yeah.
with the music. But no, that was my first time listening to it start to finish.
Okay, I didn't know that. Well, I guess it kinda does, like, work in the background. It's like you still maybe you're not taking it in as, like, much, but, like, it's there.
It's definitely there. Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah, that
for
is,
sure.
yeah, that is, like, the thing that's interesting, like, for, a lot of this stuff that, like, obviously, like, you have, like, some of the Beatles stuff tapping into, like, psychedelic things and, like, Pink Floyd really making it their brand. Like, the other interesting thing when I think about, like, concerts is that, like, there's people, like, that will be, like, on, like, a lot of different things, I'll just say, to kinda try to keep it clean on this podcast.
Yeah.
But for me, like, even, like, having a drink at, like, concerts, I don't really do that all that much because, like, normally I have to drive myself or it's just, like, me going, so I'm like, I don't wanna have any other things later, have to even be paranoid in the back of my mind, be like, "Oh, you had a
Right.
drink," or something. But, for me, like, the music just, like, takes me over, and that is, like, my drug. I don't know, I know you haven't, had the chance to go to a lot of shows yet, but, like, how do you have any thoughts on that kinda stuff? Because, like, I don't wanna be any way for people, like, having a good time, but there are some people that just have way too much to drink and things, they can't handle themselves. Because
Yeah.
believe me, there's somebody at every show. So do you have any thoughts on that kinda stuff? Or, like
Yeah, for sure. I've only been to the one concert. I went to a weekend concert with some friends of mine last year, and that was, I didn't do anything. I was there sober, and that was incredible. I don't think I would do it any other way, like you said. You really got to take it in. But yeah, I mean, with any show or event, there's always going to be people who overdo it. Like at football games, I've been to a lot of
Yes. Yep.
college football games recently, and there's always people who overdo it, which kinda takes away from the experience a little bit, but, it's hard to control that.
Yeah, that I totally agree with that because it's just like I, kind of feel like a hypocrite and I'm not trying to be like, don't have a good time or something, but just like there's some of that towards just like, dude, you paid for these tickets. It's like just, you know, don't you want to remember it?
Right, yeah, and if you do too much of anything, you just won't remember it, and like you said, then what's the point?
Like, for example, like I went to like a country festival like a couple summers in a row with my friends, and like I even just one of my friends the other day, I was like talking about like, oh yeah, I remember so and so like when they played, and he's like, I don't remember any of that. I'm just like, oh, because they're just like, well, because like for some people like that is like they're like, well, about just like kind of drinking in a field basically, and I'm like, that's
Yeah.
fine. I was just like, and my friend too like handles himself fine. He's not a problem. But I was just like, but he's also not remembering anything to where me, like, I'm so much more music first. And I'm like, there's like people I'm just dying to see. And I've, waited and, paid the money. And I was like, I love their stuff. So I was like, I want to remember everything. And I can, recall it, specific things and stuff, So it's just like, I don't know. I just never want to
Yeah,
put myself in a situation like that. I don't see that happening just because again I'm music first, and that is like
mhm,
I said my drug is just the music itself, and I'm like if I'm experiencing it live, and there is something too that it's just like you'll never get that moment back, like it is very specific, to
yeah,
right then and there.
yeah, you could record it all you want, but being there is truly something special. Going back to the weekend concert that I went to, there was pyrotechnics, and we were kind of in the back of the stadium, but you felt the heat from the spits of fire coming out. It was incredible. That's something you can't capture in a video.
No, you could not, and I totally agree. I'm not a huge fan of The Weeknd, but his production did look really cool for his stadium tour because I know you saw that at a Ford Field, so that looked like a really, really cool like setup and everything.
Yeah, I can't say I'm a big weekend person either, but not knowing any of the music, just being there for the experience was something special.
Yeah, I think so, and I think there is something to be said with that because you don't always have to know like a lot of, like, an artist's, like, things before seeing them live. Sometimes if they just have a reputation as, like, a solid live act, and then you just kinda learn as you go. Like, I saw Cheap Trick years ago, and I only knew, like, a couple of their songs, and then after I was like, "Well, that was really good," then now I listen to more of their stuff, and it's kind of a thing like that, and, especially with, like, opening acts too, because there have been times to where I've been like, "Oh, I wish I woulda saw so and so, but I didn't, wasn't really sure," or like what I've heard I didn't really like about, such and such opening act they had. Most of the time, I feel like it's worth giving it a shot, Never have to see them again, but
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
so I know earlier you kinda talked about, like, those big 4, like, Pink Floyd albums, like, could you pick a top 3 out of those, And also my other question to that is, like, overall for their discography, do you have, like, your least favorite album of theirs?
Least
It's
favorite.
kinda 2
So
questions, I guess.
yeah, yeah. Oh, out of the ones I've listened to, I don't think I have a least favorite. I haven't listened to all of them, so the ones I've listened to, they're all pretty good. As for like the top three, I think number one is definitely Animals, as I think my favorite album of all time, surpassing the Beatles, which is a little surprising. Number two, probably Wish You Were Here, and then number three, Dark Side. The Wall is just a bit too long for me to sit through the entire thing. It's
That's fair.
truly it's like a book, like you said earlier. There's a story there.
There is, I think that's, a good way of putting it, and, it was funny just because, like, there's, like, someone I know and so that they're like, "Yeah, I played The Wall for this guy," and he was like, "Great, that's 2 hours I won't get back."
Yeah.
Very much is that way. I don't know. I guess like for me, I don't have like a specific like favorite of them. Again, I just like kind of have like a little sprinkling of stuff here and there just because like there's things from Dark Side and there's things from, the Wall that I like. But I don't know. And the Wall too, it's like it is a great concept like album and it is like a whole story, but I was just like, I don't know, there's so many kind of like anti-establishment and like against the man kind of type stuff and like corruption and brainwashing kind of things. Like it's not
Mhm.
that like we don't need that kind of stuff, I don't know how much like how many things were there at that time, but it's just like nowadays there's so much like material like that, if that makes sense.
Yeah, for sure. And I definitely think Pink Floyd kind of started that whole idea. Because Animals, the album before The Wall, kind of took that same topic. Each animal is a type of like person. The dogs are the business people, the pigs are the politicians, and the sheep is everybody else. Very anti-establishment, kind of going against all of that. The Wall definitely went harder with this story than Animals did. Um,
Yeah, I think so. It kind of, like leaned into that more. I guess the other thing like that always is in like my head with that is that like even though they're like unrelated, is that like with animals, like I always think of Animal Farm, like the book and stuff. I don't know, it just pops in my head. Like I know they're not the same thing exactly, but it's kind of, maybe a little bit of similar subject matter. I mean, I don't know if you have a take on that, but
no, that's exactly it though. Animals is based off of Animal Farm. The whole idea of putting animals to certain types of groups of people. That was Roger Waters' whole idea with the album.
oh, okay. See, I wasn't 100% sure because sometimes like things just have similar titles, but they're unrelated. So, okay. I
Yeah,
didn't know that.
yeah. It's great that you made that correlation. Because that's exactly what it was meant to be.
Okay. Did you read that book in high school at all or no?
I don't think we did.
Okay. I did my
I do
fresh
want to read it, but I'm not
Yeah.
one to read books all that often. So
No, that's fair. Like I'll be honest, like I'm not a reader. I watch a lot of, movies and stuff, but I really don't read. The only kind of stuff I read is more like biographies. I love that or like articles. Just because it's like real stories and to the point. But
yeah, for
that's
sure.
just kind of what I do. But especially
Yeah.
like about like musicians and stuff. I have, like books on like, Paul Stanley from Kiss or like Nikki Sixx from Motley Crue or like Dave Grohl's book, and I don't know. They kind of just sit on my shelf for the most part, but like they are cool to flip open every now and then. But
Yeah, it's
yeah,
exactly like vinyl, though. A lot of them sit tucked away, but when you want to listen to them, you listen to them or read them in the case of the books.
yeah, and there is something I think for both of those, like with having a physical item like that, towards like no matter what happens with subscriptions or whatever and stuff, or like you have the records, they're not going anywhere. You got them, you got the books too. But
Yeah, you own them. Um,
oh, speaking of Animal Farm and stuff. I appreciate you kind of clearing that up because I had no idea. I was just like, that would be interesting if they were like, the same, related to the same stuff. And it does make sense. And I am, sure that that book like inspired like, other things and stuff. But yeah, it was a really good book and story and stuff. And again, for me not being a reader, I really enjoyed it. And I know I had to do like a, presentation on it and stuff. And I know there's a couple different movies about it, whatever, too. And there's even like a newer one coming out. It's not like my
Mm.
favorite thing in the world. I'm just kind of aware of it. Like there's a few things like of books that I've stuck in my head. It's like that or like, Fahrenheit 451 and like a couple of other things. Like again, not a reader either, but like some things that are good, like they kind of can cross over like that for me. But
But yeah, a lot of the political satire, I guess you could kind of group it all into that 1984. The book and the album don't really correlate, but both are good,
yeah,
I've
I was
heard.
gonna say, yeah, I was gonna say, yeah, that was a good book and stuff. And then it's interesting you also have the album too. I'm assuming you're talking about the album by Van Halen, 1984. Is there okay?
Yeah, yeah, I have it on vinyl. I've only listened to the first side, which is probably criminal of me, but the first side is really good.
Yeah, that's a good album too. It's not my favorite of theirs, but obviously it does have some good stuff. What other like Van Halen stuff do you like? This is kind of off topic, but since we're talking about that anyway.
Yeah, 1984 is about it.
Okay, I was curious. Like,
Yeah,
I
it's
would definitely recommend like the first couple of albums are really good. The debut is amazing in my opinion. Like one of the best records of all time.
okay. Yeah, I have to take a listen to it sometime soon. I really enjoyed the first side, 1984, though. So if it's anything like that, then I'm sure I'll love it.
Oh yeah, I'm sure. Even probably more so because 1984 was like I don't know. 1984 is like a bit more like kind of polished and like keyboard heavy to where like the first album is more like kind of hard rock kind of ripping guitar solos, kind of shredder stuff. But that's Eddie Van Halen. Eddie Van
Yeah.
Halen's my number one guitar player of all time, in my opinion. He's my favorite.
How would you rank like your top three guitarists? I know Eddie Van Halen is number one.
Ooh, so yeah, I'd say Eddie Van Halen's number one, and then I'd probably say my number two is probably Slash. Like Guns N' Roses are not my favorite like band of all time, but he just I don't know. Even just like the solo in like November Rain and like stuff like that, or like Sweet Child of Mine, like I don't know, he's
Yeah,
probably my number two. And then my number three, I'm not sure just because like for most people's lists, like Jimi Hendrix is their number one or two, but I just don't really listen to him all that much. Like not that he's like bad, but like, oh, I don't really know what my number three is. I like, I don't have a good answer for what my third is. I really don't. I just kind of have a top two for sure. Do you have a top three like favorite guitarists?
yeah, I think so. I was thinking about it while you were talking because I wasn't sure either. I think I would have to put Prince number one, just off of Purple Rain. That's the only album I've listened to by him, but the guitar work in that is incredible. And then two and three are very interchangeable between Gilmour and Harrison. That comes from my love of the Beatles and Pink Floyd, of course. But yeah, I think Prince would have to be number one.
I think that's a good choice. I mean, again, too, is like I'm not a huge fan of him. I think sometimes what like turns me off is like I feel bad that I kind of like, associate the art with the artist sometimes because it's better sometimes to differentiate between them just because like Prince like was, kind of a prick to a lot of people, but maybe
Yeah,
it's just because like to have such a creative mind like that, maybe you have to be a little bit, off your rocker a little bit and very much set in your own kind of space like that and to be like because he even got pissed like at people like covering his songs and things like I'm like I
really.
didn't think it was a yeah, I think there's like stuff like that, like he didn't like hate every single one, but he was very particular about that as far as I know, so
Yeah. I
yeah.
know John Lennon was kind of the same way. I definitely try to separate the artist and the person between him because the artist is incredible. John Lennon as a person, maybe not so great.
Yeah, there's just some of that to where it's like I think that's like obviously his songs don't like do it as much for me, like for John Lennon. But is that like yeah, I think some of it that turns me off a big thing is just his like personality and stuff. But I mean
Yeah,
at
I
least he
get
like
that.
yeah, because like I mean he did call stuff like it was, so there is something to be said for that he didn't sugarcoat stuff. Because even like for things of Paul's, he's like, yeah, this was kind of garbage, whatever. And I'm like, okay, but yeah.
No, I mean,
Oh.
most of the time he wasn't wrong though.
No, I mean, it's pretty straight up about stuff. Like, even, like, I remember, like, when, there's something about, like, when, from the White Album, like, the Beatles did Birthday, and, like, I like that song, but then John's like, "It was kinda stupid that we redid Happy Birthday." And then Paul's like, "Ah, it's a it's a good idea," and then, like, "What are we doing?" That's kinda what it seemed like he felt like, but
Yeah, I know there was
to me
a big deal about Maxwell's Silver Hammer on Abbey Road.
Yes. Oh god, that was, like, such a big s like, yeah, that was such a, like, a big stink made for that. It's a weird song, but I like it. Do you like
It
that
is.
song?
I do like it. Yeah, yeah, I do like it. It sticks out a little bit on the album, but it doesn't take away from it.
Yeah, I totally agree, and I think too is, like, that was probably oh, yeah, that's on Abbey Road, isn't it?
Yeah.
That would've been more fitting for, like, the White Album because it was, like, experimental and stuff, just because, like, you have good stuff, but then you also have the offbeat things, and then it's just like you just have somebody in medical school murdering somebody with a silver hammer, it's just like, "Okay," but yeah,
Yeah,
and I love the little anvil thing is like, "Dun, dun." I love that thing,
yeah,
but
that is they were so creative in the studio and implementing tools like an anvil is it's really super creative.
yeah, nobody else was doing that. I think that was, like, the beautiful thing is, like, like, there's some stuff I think back, like, if I would have been able to see like the Beatles live. Like, I think it would have been cool and whatever. But there is like something to be said, like when they stepped away from touring and they could focus on, really making so much different stuff in the studio like that. That like if they would have been a touring band, I don't think they would have been doing any of that stuff like what they did.
100% not. Yeah, so when they stopped touring, it was around 19 I wanna say it was after they released Revolver, and they tried to do some of those songs off of Revolver, and it couldn't quite work.
No,
So, as they went into the studio, they really used the studio as another instrument, and that's the sort of argument I use for when people are discussing, "Ooh, who's the 5th Beatle?" And I guess I'm kinda curious on who you think the 5th Beatle is.
well, I mean, like it's kind of stereotypical, but like I would say George Martin for sure. He was a hell of a producer. Do you think that too?
I completely agree. He didn't necessarily play the instruments other than, a few times on certain tracks, but he used that mixing deck or whatever it's called as another instrument. He played it so well.
I think so. Yeah, he really changed the game for them, and I think kind of not that like the Beatles were bad musicians or writers or anything, but I think he just kind of really helped them along and be like, there's another way to kind of do this stuff, and then of like the way of mixing it and experimentation and different sounds. Like he definitely helped with that so much, and even his son is like a good producer, and he's worked with them on different projects or like
Mhm.
or like restoring and remixing things, and it's really cool.
Yeah, Giles Martin, his son, has been remixing the new 50th anniversary mixes of all of them. I mean, like you say, he's done an incredible job.
Oh yeah, yeah, for sure. Like, I mean, it's like so stereotypical, like for like, people be like, oh, I like the Beatles, you like the Beatles, but it's just like there's like it's so good, and there's a reason why they're probably like the number one greatest band of all time. They've influenced so many people. They hold up in pop culture and like songs too that it's like are still relevant today. Cause there are other like 60s songs that just like you can really like tell their age with stuff. But like the Beatles thing is just like, I don't know, it feels like it still works. Like there's something about it to me.
Yeah, it's really held up in pop culture. I don't know if I have anything more to add on to that. You touched it pretty well. But yeah, you can't really, other than their early stuff, their later stuff, you can't really put an age on. They're so timeless, I guess. Like Let It Be.
Exactly. It's just I don't know, it's just so, like it's just so beautiful. There's, like, something to that is just, like it's like, I don't know, it's like magic. It really is. Like, it doesn't even make sense to me, like, how they did any of that stuff. Because I was just like, dabble, like, a little bit with, like, drums or, like, I played trumpet years ago in, like, middle school, but I was like, I play everything by ear, and it's like, I don't know any chords on guitar, but, like, I can do Smoke on the Water and, like, Satisfaction, like, a couple things, but, like, I really
Right.
don't know what I'm doing. But it's interesting for the fact too, it's like they weren't trained musicians either, like, especially, like, Paul McCartney, for example, like he can't read music, he doesn't know like anything, and he just does it by ear. So I was like, I'm a little bit old school like that. I'm not Paul McCartney by any means. I am left-handed though too, so I was like my brother,
Yeah.
but yeah, there is something to that. I was just like, damn, if I just never got three guys together, maybe we could be the new Beatles. But Anyway,
Yeah. Yeah,
yeah.
I recently turned 20 years old, which kind of makes me feel old. You know, George Harrison was, I think, around 2021 when he was getting big in the Beatles. And I'm looking at him, I'm like, man, I have done nothing.
I
Like
know,
I
that's the
could
way I
be
feel like
in the
with a lot
Beatles.
that's the way I feel like with a lot of these rock stars, because 'cause I'll look at, like, well, how old was, like, Paul Stanley of Kiss when they were, like, touring arenas or, like, when Alive came out or, like, so many of these different rock stars were, like, James Hetfield from Metallica, and I was like, "He was my age and he was doing stadiums," and I'm like, "I gotta get my stuff together here." I'm like, "I've done nothing." Yeah, that's the way I feel too. It's so different because it's just like, oh, they were probably like in their, 30s or something at that time. It's like, no, they're like, 20 or
They're
25.
babies at that point. Yeah.
Yeah, I know, it's just crazy, like, or even, like, for them, just getting bands together and playing with people, like, right off the, get-go, and it's like, yeah, I definitely was not that together with stuff, but
No, yeah.
oh
I mean, I've considered starting a band, but I don't know where to get started with it, you know?
yeah, it's hard. Several years ago, I was in a band with, like, a couple other guys, like, it didn't really work out the best, like, we were just into different kinda stuff, and at that time too, is I have a microphone now and, like, a drum monitor that works for that. But it's like at that time, I was literally just using a microphone that plugged into a guitar amp, and like the drums and the guitar were so loud over my vocals, like I couldn't hear anything. So and then I
Yeah.
just like kind of lose my voice because I'm just trying to yell over them. And then they were kind of more like of kind of progressive rock, and no shade to them, they did what they want to do, but I just am kind of more like kind of classic hard rock and some kind of country stuff. That's kind of more what I lean towards. But maybe I'll get something together someday. I'd really love just to have like a kind of like do a solo, thing and just have a backing band. But I don't know how people find like a backing band to being a solo artist without like pissing other people off. Like I don't know how that works though.
Yeah, I have no idea either. It's really odd to me that, you know, like Prince, for example, it's Prince and the Revolution. The Revolution's his backing band, and I'm
Yeah.
just in awe on how that could happen.
I know it is different for some of that stuff. Or like, like you have like Bruce Springsteen and the E Street Band, or like Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers. It's just like you just think of like the first name, really. You don't like the band is there, yes, but it's just like it's like okay, so you're going to see Tom Petty, or be like, oh, you're going to see Bruce Springsteen. Be like, hey, I'm the E Street Band. It's just like you don't really see them doing like shows on their own very often. It's like okay, it's almost like, well, we're here too. It's just like, that's what it feels like to me. But
Yeah, for sure. I think as a solo artist, you know, if you do all the instruments yourself, you can't do that live unless you're Ed Sheeran. I know he does that.
I was just gonna say, like, he is very much an outlier. I don't know how his whole like, switchboard and pedal board thing works, but it is something. But also too, it's like that's could be a pain, like to to have to create that loop like with every song you do to where it's like, here's like the drum thing. I mean, I'm sure after a while he probably just has it set up with like his sound guy to where it's like, he's doing minimal stuff on the board, maybe. I
Hmm.
don't know for sure, but and then doing like stadiums in the round like himself, he's like, I'm in love with, and then like, it's just something he just has like, a little like ukulele or like just his guitar, and I'm like, wow, okay.
Yeah,
It's
it's
definitely
I,
different.
I don't know how he does it.
It's something too to where it's just like literally being the only person on stage. Because I was like, I get that for like a stand-up comedian, but like music, it's like it's it's better, I feel like, to have more musicians up there because then it's like if you get your timing off or something, or like you can jam with other people, or like, talk to them about something, or be like you can be like up in the drummer's face and just like, riffing away or whatever. I don't know.
Yeah.
That's just the way I think. But I was like, hey, Ed does his thing. And I'm not a huge fan of him, but I think he is talented for sure. And I do like the guy. I like, a few of his songs, but I was just like, it's still just, yeah, the pull he has is crazy. Like, the amount of people he plays for, like just huge shows.
Yeah, it's incredible. I'm in agreement with you. Like I don't really listen to his stuff either, but the way I think he was popular in what the 2010s or around there. Just he skyrocketed in fame, and I gotta give him props for that.
Oh yeah, for sure. I think that's kind of like the way I try to look at. There's some stuff I'm not necessarily like the biggest fan of, but like there is like I have respect for like when somebody has built something like that. And be like, hey, I see you, but
Yeah, for sure. 100%.
Wait, do you have like any other kind of questions about just kind of random music things for me at this point, or not really?
I guess I don't know how much you listen to Bruno Mars or if at all, but I'm curious what you think about his new album if you've listened to it.
I'll be straight up. I have not listened to it at all. I do know someone at my work that is going to see him in Detroit, so I thought that was cool that he's going to be out there playing stadiums and stuff. So I was like, good for him. I've not listened to. It's called what? The Romantic. Is that
Yeah.
his new album? Okay.
Yep.
He's not one that I really listen to really at all, to be honest. Like, there's like a couple of his songs like that are like really, really good. Like Locked Out of Heaven's probably like my favorite of his, but he's a really talented guy for sure. And the other thing I guess that I think of with him a lot of times is I know I mentioned like, Prince with the Super Bowl halftime performance, but his halftime show was really good too. And how he started like with the drum solo thing, and then he did his songs, and he had like the Chili Peppers come out, and I thought that was cool.
Yeah, I
He's a
can't say
talented guy for sure.
yeah. So I can't say I've seen his halftime show. But yeah, a lot of his popular songs I like. I got really hyped for the new album when I listened to the lead single.
Yeah, I will have to check that out sometime. I assume he's just more in kind of like the pop vein still, like as normally for him, or is he doing something different with this album?
I think it feels a little different. I'm not sure how to describe it, but it's really good.
I guess the other thing I think of with Bruno Mars too is that I did like it's not my favorite song by either of them. I do like the song he did with Lady Gaga, "Die with a Smile."
Yes, yeah, I really like that one too.
I hear that like played like almost every day and stuff, but it is a good song. I just yeah, it's different. Is that like I come off as more of like kind of like a I like classic rock and I like country and stuff, but you'd be surprised too of like a lot of the different artists I like. Like I like Olivia Rodrigo, or like I like things by like Jonas Brothers or like Lady Gaga, or like I saw Katy Perry last year and I like her a lot. So I think to me, I don't know how it is for you, but like I think if the music is good to your ears, it doesn't really matter what it is. Like, I don't
Right,
really put
yeah.
myself in a box to where I just listen to one thing, so you kind of feel a similar way.
Yeah, for sure. I really have I like to describe it as like my home music, where it's the classic rock, the Beatles, Pink Floyd, what have you. But, you really branch out, like you said. For me, it's Bruno Mars, Green Day a little bit, which, there's some connection between, to the Beatles, certain degrees of separation there. But yeah, my home is definitely classic rock, but I do branch out every so often.
Yeah, I kind of feel a similar way. I guess like classic rock, like, I think a very good way, like you put it, is like of, being your home and kind of feel like almost like the foundation, like build up from there. Because from when I was younger, like I always remember like being in the car, and stuff, or like in the, my dad's truck and listening to like classic rock songs. You like a hurricane by Scorpions, or you have like Cat Scratch Fever by like Ted Nugent or something, like stuff like that is just like just burned into my brain, and they're just like classics, or like even like reminiscing, like hearing like Rock and Roll All Night by Kiss like the first couple times, or like shout it out loud before I became like a huge fan.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just something to be said that it's like it's kind of comforting to where it's like for me, like with my like listening like things, is that kind of every like probably like month or few months I kind of go in spurts to where it's like I'll listen to like different people. Like right now I got back on like a Morgan Wallen kick, and I've been listening to like Ella Langley a lot. Then I'm listening to Hardy a little bit. And like before that I was listening to like, Paul McCartney a lot. And before that I was like listening to Casey Musgraves a lot. And it's like I kind of go in spurts. Do you do a similar thing or not really?
Oh, 100%. Yeah. I get my Green Day kick, the whole what's that genre called? I'm blanking. Kind of like I don't know. Green Day.
Like
Punk
punk
rock.
rock?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I get on that every so often. Like you said, I go through phases. Pink Floyd every so often. It's the Beatles a lot of the times. Prince sometimes. But yeah, it definitely comes in phases for sure.
Yeah, it kind of comes and goes. And I mean, there's just so much to listen to as there is. And then like for me, like I said, that I'm, kind of, I really have become more of like a country fan like these days, is that like there's so much new stuff put out. And I guess like modern country, I like a lot more than like newer rock. Cause like newer rock, most of the stuff I like is basically like just, newer songs by like older bands, like if, Def Leppard or Motley Crue comes out with something, or like I do, enjoy like, stuff by Green Day. I like them a lot. And, or like, oh, they get a lot of hate, but like I like some of Nickelback stuff even. Or like, Shine Down. That was the big one of newer
Yeah,
rock. I think they are probably like really like the best. Like I do love Green Day too, but like Shine Down of just like live show and newer material and all this stuff. And they tour like madmen. Like they really tour like old school style. Like they play a lot of shows.
yeah. I got real big into well, can't say real big, but I got into Shinedown about a year ago, and yeah, a lot of their songs are really good. It's kind of it's leaning more towards like the dad rock genre, if you will, which
Yeah.
my dad does listen to. He went to a rock fest. I'm not sure if you know what that is.
Oh, is that the one in Wisconsin?
Yeah,
Okay, I'm
where like
aware of that.
a bunch of bands like Shinedown and 3 Days Grace come together for a 3 day concert, what have you.
Yeah, festival.
Yeah, yes, that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he's
Yeah,
gone to that a few times.
Huh, I didn't know that. That's kind of cool. The thing with me for like a lot of rock festivals is like, or at least like, I guess I'm more reminiscing like, there used to be Rock USA and like Oshkosh. I never went to that, but like when I would see the lineups, it's like there would be like a stellar day or two, and then there would be like a whole day of like bands I did not care to see. So I'm like, that's the way I kind of lean towards, I guess. But yeah,
Yeah,
I don't
for
know if you have
sure.
any thoughts on that, but like those kind of festival lineups.
I don't really look at festivals all too often. I will
That's fair.
say when my dad brought home like a mug that had all the bands on it from one of the years he went to Rockfest, I only recognized maybe two or three of them.
Oh, okay.
Of course, that's not my genre of music. He knew a lot more of
Yeah.
the bands,
Yeah.
but yeah,
Yeah, no, I think that's kind of interesting. It is cool, like I said, like when you do hit it right, like for festivals like that. Like I've ever thought about before, like they do have like the Welcome to Rockville down in Florida, or there's like Louder Than Life festival. Like they be like very long trips, but it's just like sometimes too, it's like they are good deals like for the tickets, like in the long run, because like of being able to see like all these bands for like, it'd be like 200 or like $300 compared to like when you can spend more on like a single ticket for one band. So it's like,
yeah.
there's different ways to look at it. But yeah,
It's like bulk pricing almost. You get more for your money, I guess.
exactly. Exactly. And that's kind of like the way I look at it too, as I mentioned earlier. Like I went to, a country festival a couple of times with my friends, and like it was nice to be able to kind of knock out like a lot of different people I wanted to see in a short amount of time, and for like a better price, because a lot of that stuff where they really get you is just like with like the camping mainly. But I
Yeah,
was like, but man, that's not a bad deal at all, So
yeah,
yeah, I don't
for
know.
sure.
Yeah. What was I going with this? Yeah, no, but Green Day and Shinedown and different stuff like that, those could for sure be different topics for like another episode in the future. And this one I might almost have to break into 2 episodes. It's going to be a bit long, but I was glad to be able like to talk for as long as we did. And I know you're going to go back up here in not too long. Is that like we even could like deep dive some of my records, like you could just pull stuff out and see what you think, cuz like I said, I don't own obviously everything I listen to either, but like I think you would kind of maybe find it interesting that like of just the different variety that I'm into and listen to, and be like, hell yeah, I have that, real like
Yeah,
so
for sure. Yeah, I'd be down for that, definitely.
yeah, that could be a lot of fun. I have a million ideas for different episodes, and I was glad to kind of get this kind of mapped out, because like I said, I have kind of some bullet points to like go through, so that I'm just not like being like, so I don't know what my third favorite guitarist is, like Eddie Van Halen.
Yeah,
Yeah. But I think it left enough space for natural conversation and to branch off to other topics. So again, too, you're only my second guest on this. So working on this and getting better of trying to get more people booked on here and having conversations with others. But I guess with that, do you have any like other like questions, or you kind of cover it for now? I guess.
I think we covered it all. We don't, I don't want this episode to go on for forever, like you said. I'm curious if
No,
you have
it's okay.
any other questions for me.
I guess I don't at this time. Yeah, I get it, because I don't want to take up all of your night either. But I guess at the end of the day, like the Beatles paved the road, everyone else is driving on, and Pink Floyd might have built a cool rest stop with some nice lights, but the Beatles really built the highway, in my opinion. Do you agree with that, or do you have any thoughts?
I do agree with that 100%. The Beatles really paved the way for everybody else. And I don't think some people realize how much influence the Beatles really had, but that's for them to discover at the end of the day.
I agree. Well, I guess that's a good way to end, and I appreciate you taking the time today to do this with me.
Yeah,
And
thank you.
yeah, this was really, yeah, for sure. It was really a lot of fun, and I know I will have you on again for sure, and we'll think of some different topics, and I'm never going to run out of ideas on here.
For sure. I'd be honored to be on this again. This is really a fun time, so thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. And again, appreciate your time, and it was fun doing this today. So take it easy, and I will catch up with you sometime.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks.